Hi there, it's Llarold. Patch 7.1.5 released just last week, and this will be my third video discussing what's new with tanks, and how to optimize them as we're heading into the Nighthold. Today I'll be talking about Blood Death Knights. The patch brought some pretty big changes to the class, and I think they're probably at the best point now that they've been all expansion. Let's start off with the quality of life improvement to Bone Shield. Bone Shield is now only removed by enemy melee attacks, meaning that damage over time effects and caster mobs won't just hilariously destroy your Bone Shield anymore. This seemingly small change actually has a huge cascading effect on how the class is played. The basic rotation is as follows. It technically hasn't changed in the patch, but the rate at which you lose Bone Shield charges while tanking should get slower, meaning you won't have to cast Marrow Rend as often, and you can put more of your runes into Heartstrike. That's an increase to DPS, self-healing, and just the overall fun of the class. The only other base class changes are that Gorfine's Grasp had its cooldown reduced from 3 minutes to 2, and Vampiric Blood now affects absorbs. Both good buffs. Underperforming talents received some buffs, and a few super popular talents were nerfed. All 3 talents in the first tier were changed. Bloodworms had its heal tripled, and it's actually the best self-healing talent in the row in single target, but it's uncontrollable and still not great in Raids or Mythic Plus. Heartbreaker now only generates 2 runic power per target hit by Heartstrike, down from 3. It's still the best talent in full-blown AoE, but in single target it's quite a lot weaker. Blood Drinker was buffed, way too much at first, and wound up getting brought back in line a little bit. It's still the best DPS option in single target fights by a good margin, and I would use it for nearly every single fight in Nighthold. Try to cast it while you have procs active. In the second row of talents, Rapid Decomposition was nerfed substantially, and instead of increasing your runic power generation by 15% while you're standing in your D&D, it now just regenerates 1 runic power per second. This is a big nerf, but it's made up for primarily by the revamp to Bone Shield and the Tier 19 set bonuses. The nerf to Rapid Decomp makes Spectral Deflection a lot less punishing to pick up for really hard-hitting bosses in the Nighthold as well, so that's sort of a silver lining, I guess. Blood Tap had its recharge rate doubled, but that's primarily just to offset the Bone Shield change, and Ossuary is still the best talent in that row. Mark of Blood and Tombstone were buffed quite a bit, but Red Thirst is just still better all of the time. If Red Thirst is prime rib, or tofu if you're vegan, the other 2 are cold hot dogs with no buns that you found in a trash can. Tightening Grasp only reduces the cooldown of Gorfine's Grasp by 30 seconds instead of a full minute now, but with the baseline reduction on Gorfine's cooldown by a minute, it's still an overall buff. Grip more often, it's great. March of the Damned now increases Wraith Walk duration by 100%, up from 50, and that's a decent increase to what is still a pretty bad mobility skill. Will of the Necropolis and Rune Tap were both buffed by a lot. Will was increased from 20% damage reduction while below 35% health to 35% damage reduction while below 35% health. It sounds really good, but you generally just don't spend a lot of time that low, and if you are that low on health, something is wrong. Rune Tap was buffed from a 25% damage reduction cooldown to a 40% damage reduction cooldown. It's really good now, and definitely worth taking whenever you're going to come up against predictable burst damage. There's a lot of that in the Nighthold, like Slam on Croesus, just as the first example that comes to mind. So Foul Bulwark and Rune Tap will both get a lot of use. Bone Storm had its healing effect doubled, but it's still only useful for AoE damage, so really only good for Mythic Plus. Purgatory was also buffed and will no longer break early if you're healed just above 0% health and take more damage and instantly die. It's still not great. Blood Mirror is still going to be the best talent nearly all of the time in raids, so take it and use it liberally. It's a great damage reduction tool and a great DPS tool. Blood DK's stat priority is the same in patch 7.1.5 as it was before. Haste is the best all-around stat until you're close to 50% unbuffed, which is pretty much unreachable. Versatility is your second best defensive stat, and Strength, Haste, and Crit are overall your 3 best offensive stats. Mastery is undertuned and really not great for offense or defense. Stamina is a good stat, but most stamina trinkets are terrible, so get what you can from gear and don't worry about it from trinkets. Lastly, I'm going to touch on legendaries briefly. Skullflower's Homeostasis is a new Blood Legendary shoulder named after the Death Knight theory crafter Skullflower, who actually now works at Blizzard. These are a great tribute for all the work he's put in on the community's behalf for years, and they are outstanding. A massive DPS and self-healing increase that's really easy to use. They're an A+ legendary that combos really well with Shackles of Bryndaor, the class's other best legendary. Service of Gorefiend also received a little buff with the improvements to Bone Shield and how much more often you'll be casting Heartstrike during most fights. Finally, the new tank trinket actually works pretty well on Blood DKs and combos really well with Vampiric Blood. It's pretty good for damage and it's fine defensively. If you are lucky enough to have legendaries to choose from, here's my priority for how useful they are. That about covers it. Thanks for watching, and as always, please like and subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and get in touch if you have any questions. Bye.